So, Adam, what are we going to be talking about today in SMUG Live?
Oh yeah. So first off, apologies for last week, guys. There was some weirdness on Facebook's end. Just wouldn't let us create the event like we normally are able to. We did pretty much everything we could have possibly thought of, but we wanted to just move it to this week so that we could try a different process using Zoom here and being live to you guys. So the other thing is, I'll let Joe hop in here in a second. We wanted to talk about Fill My Schedule. We had a post a few weeks back about potential supply chain issues and as far as envelopes. That's been resolved. But Joe, do you want to kind of take a moment to just kind of chat about that?
Yeah, I would hesitate to use the word resolved. It's been temporarily alleviated. So supply chain issues are causing paper shortages across the nation. We saw this a little bit the first time around about a year ago. And based off the paper and envelopes that we were ordering, not much has changed. Well, because of the way that the mills are getting paper and the type of paper that they're getting, and the fact that everything has gone up, and they're also increasing some of their costs and on down the chain, what's happening is they're prioritizing paper types and paper output for the highest profitable types of paper. And the envelopes and we get envelopes and paper from, we used to get it all from one place. Now we're kind of like finding places where we can get it. Just in time inventory is no longer a thing. Like we're stocking shelves of like 200,000 envelopes, 200,000 cards worth of material. So we're trying to mitigate it by stocking as much as we can, which is reasonable, and then staying ahead of that curve. Now, unfortunately, it looks like we have to keep reestablishing relationships with different vendors, because at different points in time, one mill will have it or one press will have it, and then not, or we'll get promised, make the payment, everything's good. Right before we get the FedEx tag, supposedly, then our paper gets reshipped or reassigned to some other thing. So your cards are shipping. Keep pressing the button. We'll keep doing our damnedest to make sure that the supply chain on our end stays as fat as possible. We may reach a point where we're going to have to pause for a second or two. I hope that doesn't happen. I just want to prepare you for it. That, which may be on the heels of what's coming up, the Fill My Schedule, custom fronts, and self-management. We're still not 100% sure when that's going to be released, but we're in the final rounds of QA. We've got one more technical item we're chasing down, and then we're ready to go. So that was certainly going to cause an increase in Fill My Schedule orders. And now I'm worried about supply issues. So, it's business owner stuff. I will keep you informed as best I can. We're good now. We've got great inventory socked away. And Alex has been a genius at finding little nooks and crannies to pull paper and envelopes. So as I said, I'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah, one thing that comes from those conversations too between you and Alex and so forth. So for those of you who don't know, he's our production manager downstairs, runs the Fill My Schedule team.
Sorry, yeah.
The one thing Joe was adamant about, we never sacrifice on quality of paper, and that's kind of like he said, they're prioritizing different types of paper, and some of those are more profitable. We want to make sure that the cards you guys get are the highest quality. We don't want flimsy, dry looking or super flimsy kind of postcard like material. We want the high quality stuff so that
high-ish quality. As far as I'm concerned, we've already taken a downgrade, but that was forced, right? I mean, the cards are good. I'm not saying we've done it recently. This was years ago. But there was another card stock that I liked much better, but people don't sell it because people don't buy it.
The main point is we will keep those communication channels open with you guys. We always try to be as transparent as possible, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that we keep that going, because we know you guys love it. We know it's a great product. So next big thing I wanted to talk about was the server upgrade. Happened last Saturday, so a week ago, from when this went live, basically, overnight. And this has been kind of building up for a little while. One of our devs, David, and I have been monitoring it, and finally just got to the point where we've grown enough that it was time to kind of make some improvements there. And a couple of you guys, I know on one particular database, kind of had a couple of days there where it started to kind of top out for, I don't want to go into too technical as far as the terms, but the bandwidth overall and so forth. We run 100% CPU at just a couple of points in the morning. So we were like, we got to pull the trigger right now. So we prepped for it. The upgrade itself went well. We finished a little bit early. It took about 2 hours in the middle of the night on Saturday. And we actually took a couple of extra steps this time to make sure you guys were well informed when that was happening. Because the last thing we want to do, right, especially with something that is an online only service, we want to make sure you guys are well in the know and that we're down as minimally as possible, right? So I didn't see anything come through the support channels. David and I both had a late night that night. But so far the logs are looking great. The capacity for, without getting into specifics, is basically twice the power and 5 times the bandwidth. So super excited to get that out for you guys. And so far it sounds like the feedback has been positive on support's end. So hope that you guys are noticing that as well. Comment, let us know if that's not the case for some reason. But we want to just kind of share that with you, right? We're all kind of growing together, and we're excited to take that next step. So now, as far as new stuff going on, Chirp. So we're a week behind now because we were originally going to go last week, but the Chirp integration is live. We had a small kind of beta period for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. About 7 users kind of jumped on that and really kind of pushed this integration initially. But if you're curious what Chirp is, we'll post some information here. I'll just do a quick breakdown. It's an automation and communication platform. What does that mean, Adam? Well, it's they focus on automation, right? They're focusing on triggers and being able so that you can set up stuff and then forget about it, right? Kind of like our drip campaigns. But they go through a bunch of different communication channels, and we integrate directly with them. So there are events inside ServiceMonster that you can trigger off of, right? Like maybe you're invoicing something, maybe you're scheduling an appointment, maybe you're updating an appointment. Maybe you want something tied to an estimate, but only an estimate, right? Not an invoice or things like that. There's all kinds of really cool functionality you could do. In fact, at the order level, one of the really cool things based on, thankfully, and Joe and David and the rest of the team were well prepared to this ahead of time. We're set up in a way that you can very easily go very deep if we allow it, right? And so one of those things is you can tie it down all the way to the line item. So you can have an automatic trigger event that bases off of one singular line item or a group or all of them or whatever you want it to be, right? So there's a lot of really cool customization there. And then what does that look like on the other end? That's just the ServiceMonster part of it. Well, on their end, you can tie it into an SMS pipeline, or you can hook up your lead funnels, right? So you can have stuff come into ServiceMonster. Some really quick examples are, they have a chat widget you can put on your site. And so someone can ask a question on there and it can come right to your phone. Boom, you can respond to that. And those events, as they come in, again, once you have the information, can pull it into ServiceMonster. They have, like I already mentioned, the texting platform, so SMS. You can do just general message broadcasts through SMS, right? So just like a marketing campaign. You can do retention style things, so like follow-ups for reviews and things like that, reminders after the point when it's time to get work done. And there's different pipelines too. You can tie up your email if you want. You can tie your Facebook pipeline into this. You can tie just so many things. We'll give you the link. There's a bunch of stuff if you guys are curious. I don't want to spend too much more time on that, but we're really excited about it. Our users who are using it are really excited about it. Ryan and his team have been great to work with. And so far, we've gotten nothing but positive news from those who are working with this team as well. So the main thing is you can set up these automations and all of your communication comes into one place, right? So all of those things I mentioned, the site widget, Facebook, SMS, whatever, you see all of that in one chat location. Think of it kind of like Facebook Messenger, but different types of chat bubbles show up in different colors, right? So pretty cool. And again, so automation, there's tons more to that. Joe and I could talk automation for probably hours, just really cool ideas you can set up. So reach out either us or to Ryan's team if you guys are curious, and we'll move on.
I'll just add one little point here.
Sure.
The amount of feedback that I've seen from clients who are just hooking it up and then booking jobs, I've never seen anything like it. There's been no integration that has had the immediate impact that Chirp is having. And you can see it on the bulletin boards because people are posting about it. This automated lead follow-up process that they have built in is the real deal for now. It's working right now. So hook it up. Like, check it out. At least go check it out. I've never pushed third parties before. I usually offer you the information and say, go check it out. Please let us know. Right? I say that a lot. Please let us know. And in this case, we're getting the feedback early on faster than any other vendor that we've had. So it's very impressive what they've done over there. So Adam posted the link if you guys want to check out what Chirp is all about.
Yeah, and one of the beta users, his name is Justin. I hope he hops on here so you can get that shout out. He actually did a video. It's pretty long. I think it's like 40 minutes. So you guys can break it up as you have time or just listen to it. But it goes into how he utilizes it with ServiceMonster and so on and so forth. So that might give you guys some good ideas, right, to start with. So, all right. So fun stuff out of the way. Another big fun item, 664. I am so excited to get this out. It's going to be a fun post-mortem when we get done with all of this. But 664 is on the precipice, as in like initial release some point next week. There are a ton of new features, some of which I will hand over to Mary here in just a sec to kind of showcase some of those. But it's also going to be the groundwork for ServiceMonster Pay. Now, before everyone gets crazy excited, there is still going to be a few day buffer from when the release comes out to when it's actually available. There's a secondary kind of QA process we have to go through once it's in the production environment. So I know most of you guys don't really care about that, but I'm just going to let you know so we don't get everyone too excited for that. But basically, it'll be 1A and 1B as far as the release comes out, just be a few days apart. And we'll have all these new features that'll come out too to kind of bide you over for those couple of days. And anyone who's chomping at the bit, and I know some of you are, for ServiceMonster Pay, we're excited to get that into your hands and kind of go over what that entails. So Mary, why don't you kind of take the reins here and show off some of these new features, and then I'll finish off and just talk a little bit about ServiceMonster Pay at the end.
You're on mute, Mary.
I can't set up my screen share.
Oh no.
It says host disabled screen sharing.
Well,
multiple participants can share simultaneously. How's that? Try now.
There we go. Okay, I'll get it.
Awesome.
So here, let me do this. Hopefully, can you see my screen?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. So walking through what all we are adding in, the first thing is going to be our email editor. So when you are going to send an email to a client, say from an order form here, if you click on the email button, what we've added in is when you go to the load template, you will now see a kind of list like this where you can see all your templates from, and you can search for specific templates. So if you're one of those people that has a ton of templates in the system for a variety of different reasons, this will now, of course, make it a lot easier for you to go through, find a specific template and select it. And when you do select it, say in this case, I accidentally selected my commercial template and I want to select my residential template, you can easily clear the template right from here by clicking on Clear Template. So those are just some additions that we've added in with our email editor to kind of ease that process of finding and changing the templates that you're using.
Yeah.
So
before you jump off, there is more likely coming to this as well. We made the change to turn this into what we call a modal or a dialogue. It used to just pop up a list, right? So when she would click load template, it would just pop up the list right under that. We wanted to basically get more functionality. And so that's why we went with this. But the search was the biggest thing we wanted to combat. I know some of you, I've personally worked with someone who had over 100 templates. And so they would basically name them in a specific way to make sure that they were always easily sortable based on different roles within the team, right? But that's not ideal. And so the search functionality is a big one. The clear template, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, you guys could close and come back in, but that's really just, it's not very clean, right? So we wanted to just give you guys that. So, and then anyways, back to Mary.
Yeah. So that's our email editor. The next thing is going to tie in with our employee notifications. Now, if you haven't already played around with this, employee notifications can be set up from an employee's page. You can go into options and set them up here. Now, the big change that's happened is the notifications are now based only around if the start time changes. So if you're going in and adding in appointments, if I hop to my schedule here and say you need to go in and adjust how long it's going to take. Oh, maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. Now, instead of multiple notifications being sent out for each of those time changes as I go and, change the length of the appointment, those are only going to be sent out if the start time of the appointment changes. So that's the key change for employee notifications.
Yeah, the main workflow, again, I'm just providing some context for you guys for where these conversations went from. The main workflow for a lot of you guys would be someone in the office would drag it over, right? And then you kind of, maybe you'd be adding things to it. Maybe, you'd be adjusting from the default, right? There'd be a default time period, maybe of 3 hours, but this is option to take 3.5, right? And then each of those minor little changes would trigger a notification. And for some of them too, if you guys were the operations manager or a dispatcher or something like that, you might have the notification set for every appointment on the schedule, right? It becomes to the point where you're getting so many notifications, you're ignoring all of them, right? You just want to tear your hair out. It's not actively helping you. The majority of the guys on the field, they, as far as their overall daily schedule goes, when are they starting? When are they stopping? What kind of work is going to be involved? They're looking at their mobile app or the if you guys are using paper for some reason, they're looking at those route packets, right? For that, they're not concerned about if the job goes from 9 to 12 versus 9 to 12:30 in terms of immediate notification, right? So that's where the conversation went. That's how the behavior works now, and I hope that maybe you guys get some better use out of that.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to highlight is with one of our reports. So we're going to hop to the report page and we are going to be looking at the technician time logs, I believe. Yes. So if I have my appointment set up here with these time logs, we've now added in a dialog where you can see the appointment information right from here. So you'd be able to go in and view those time logs and adjust them as needed. So that's kind of the key thing we've added in is where it says appointment type. Right here, you'll be able to click on where it says appointment type, and that will open up a dialog here with the appointments information where you can then go in and make those adjustments as needed.
This will actually be added to a couple of different reports too. This is just the only one that we had available for Mary to actively showcase. And this was a big one because this actually came from a discussion with one of our local businesses, showcasing how many times they go through this report and have to make minor edits because they're a very diversified company. And so they get taxed differently on some other different services. So they have to be very particular about the length of time spent on each individual service. So they're going in here and they're always making sure that those are accurate. They're working, they're talking to their communications, their technicians and communicating throughout the day to make sure. And so they were basically bouncing between this report and the schedule or the order, depending on which user it was, then going into the appointment history, then making the change and then navigating back. If you guys can imagine how, painstaking that would be over time. And I'm sure some of the other guys who have working this for different reasons have also noticed that. So really excited for that. There's a couple other dialogues we're going to be adding as well, including the payment dialogue. So trying to improve your guys' lives there, right? More efficient.
Yeah. So now hopping back to the schedule, we have adjusted how the paid and unpaid appears on your appointments on the schedule. So when you mouse over and you get the hover details here, we've increased the size of the paid. We've made it a little bit more clear, and then same with the unpaid. So you can see those both very clearly right when you mouse over them.
Yeah, this was actually just a holdover from the original schedule, which was kind of a placeholder until we got the schedule 2.0 really dialed in. It used to just say basically in plain text right under where Mary's example says residential, just said in plain text paid, and unpaid had nothing. So
I'll tell you, before Mary even mentioned it, it was the first thing that I saw.
Yep.
When you hover over it and that thing pops up, it's the first thing I see is paid or unpaid. That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the last exciting update, I believe, is our batch updates with products and services. So you can now go into your products and services and batch update them. Oh, I already have them all selected. So here, the main difference now is you can go ahead and select either a bunch at a time or like go through and pick and choose. It also remembers what you've selected, so you can, hop over to the next page. It'll still keep those selected. And you can go through and click update right here and make any updates to that group as needed. So if you need to say mark them as active or inactive, change the default quantity, price, grouping, subgroup, tax, all of that, you can now do that in bulk. So that's quite an exciting update to kind of ease the process of making those updates to your products and services.
Yeah, this is going to greatly help, new users when they come in, when you guys are making massive changes to your services, maybe over time, maybe you've introduced a new service or something of that nature. This is going to most likely find its way in other places throughout the app too. This is just where we've kind of started, and really excited to get that out to you guys, get some feedback, and then see where it goes.
This is brilliant. Well done.
Awesome.
So as far as ServiceMonster Pay, because again, that is the major feature that's kind of involved here, right? And I'm sure people are excited about that. I don't know if we've got any comments yet, but as far as that goes, I'm just going to kind of go through a couple of things right out of the gates. You guys are aware of what this actually entails, right? The big part is that not only can you process credit card payments, you can also process what they call direct debit, right? So a check or bank account, you're just putting in the account number, routing number, so forth. You can take that, process it right through the bank, and that has massively discounted rates compared to credit card. So that's the big one. Say that right off the bat. Hope you guys get excited about that. In terms of just managing.
Wait, you said that in a weird way, so I want to be real clear about it.
Sure.
You can take checks and receive them through ServiceMonster Pay. Ta-da. So you can do credit cards and checks. So then I know you're about to short circuit. So why don't you go ahead and just give them the details of that, though, right? So here's
I just want to be very clear, because when you think of bank account payments, you do think of a check, right? That's essentially what this is. It's an electronic check, but we're not taking the check directly, and you're not sending that picture to the bank or anything like that. Like, you're still, if they give you a check, you can just put that information directly as a payment through the system. Think of you guys, I don't know if you pay rent or anything like that. You just put the bank account number, the routing number in. You now have a saved bank account, or what they call a direct debit payment. So I think Joe is just trying to kind of shorten it to make it easier to understand. But the idea is just, the premise is the same across the board, right? You're making those electronic payments. In the US, it's called ACH. In Canada, it's called EFT.
Right. So again, let's see if we can just clear this up. The client will hand you a check. You can take that check. Now, you can take that check down to the bank, and the bank will then cash that check. That check is a transaction between you and the account numbers that are at the bottom in the amount specified on the check. And that check is a document or a receipt of that transaction. Now, when you get the check and you put those numbers in, the check is no longer the receipt of the transaction. You're not processing the check. You're taking the info that's on the check and using it to establish an EFT, electronic funds transfer. Now, it will be in the same amount the check is for, and for all intents and purposes, the check is the check. And from their point of view, there will be little difference. They'll see an EFT go through. If you put the check in and all the bells, whistles, will they see the check number at the end of the day? Adam, do you know that?
Well, the point that I'm making is you don't necessarily even have to write the check anymore. They can if they prefer, if you want to have that.
Well, it'll be weird to say, can you give me a blank check for a second? Right. That's just a weird conversation.
Right. I'm just saying that's essentially taking that part out. The face-to-face interaction can be handled multiple ways. But basically what you're saying is that you can process these payments electronically, and you can save it against the account. So once you have that, you can use it for future payments too.
Okay. So you can think about it like this. You're taking a check and making the information on that check a credit card that you're saving in your system that you can use and maybe do recurring payments for later. So it's better than a check, and you get to take the check as far as the customer is concerned. Let them write the check. And then you take that check, you file the check, you do all the things you need to. And then when, you do the EFT, then you stamp it. Now I guess there is a problem here, right? And then we're doing this live because I haven't thought this one through. I just, came to this. What if they try to then also cash the check?
Well, that's the whole point is you shouldn't be taking the check necessarily. You can take a blank one, you can void it, kind of like what we do when a new person's onboarded in
Right.
terms of
So
getting
technically someone could do an EFT and then go and cash the check and essentially get paid twice. It's shitty. You shouldn't do it. It's fraud and you'll get in trouble. But the system that's set up that is created through this, and we didn't have a choice in this, right? We're going with the industry standards and what they want for security. And I'm sure they covered this. But you just want to be mindful that that's, you don't want to be doing weird shit like that. But yes, if you have ServiceMonster Pay, it'll be the only payment platform which will allow you to do EFTs from a check, essentially taking check payment right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope that we cleared that up.
That clears it. I mean, we came up with a couple different analogies. It's not a terribly difficult concept, but there are layers. So if you have problems with onions, I'm sorry.
The main thing with this is you guys are going to want to make sure that, your face-to-face interaction, you guys have a process that's set up that makes sense. We tried to have a couple things that would make this easier, like a scanner that could grab the account number, routing number from the checks, but there wasn't anything that really worked the way we wanted it to. And it also, you have to be really careful when you do those things when it comes to security. Like Joe mentioned, we're hyper aware, PCI compliance, industry standards, a lot of that's offloaded to our partner. And so there's only certain things you can do to really kind of be aware of that and to make sure that you're not doing something that's storing information at all at any point. So I really hope we didn't go too much into the weeds there. Focus on the exciting part. But the main thing
payments always
from
go in the weeds and payments. Credit cards are hard, checks are hard, payments are hard, financial institutions are hard.
But once you get that information, so whether it's credit card, whether it's a bank account that's stored, you can now store and manage those directly within ServiceMonster, and you can also reuse them even in the mobile app. So you can have a credit card on file and a bank account on file for Bob. And when you go out and do the work, you can ask, if they want to use that, if they want to use a new method, you can add a new method at the same time. It's super slick, it's super easy. For those of you who like getting credit card information ahead of time without a charge, you can now do that. You can add it directly against the account. You do not have to make a charge. You can just add the card information. You can set up defaults, right? So let's say you've got maybe a commercial account or someone who has just multiple payments for multiple sites. You can set a default, so that'll always be at the top of the list, just to kind of save a click. You can deactivate cards if you want to remove them from the list. Cards will automatically show when they're expired, so you can know when to go edit them. Just a bunch of really cool things in terms of management goes for both of those methods. And the really cool part about that is now that they're stored there, you manage them and so forth, you can also set up recurring auto charge payments. And again, you can choose whether it's the bank account or whether it's the credit card, right? And you can set up a service contract that says, hey, every month on the 12th, charge this amount and send the receipt. And then we have a whole receipt email system that we built in, so you can see successful payments, failed payments. You and the user, or I should say you and the client, will get different emails. There's just a bunch of cool things tied to that, and likely some things coming in the future on that too, to expand once you get some feedback from you guys. So that's a big one. I don't want to gloss over that at all. I mean, you guys, I imagine someone who heard that is going to be just chomping at the bit to call or email us and start getting more information about that. So if I kind of glossed over it too, but the other big part was, like I said, you can reuse those payments on mobile. So currently when you do a mobile payment, it just is basically a one and done. There's reasons for that. I don't think you guys really care too much, and it involves compliance reasons. The mobile app is different. It has a higher level you have to go to in order to maintain that storage and use those, they call it the customer vault. So currently SMPay is going to be the only one that will have that. So that'll be kind of a big win too for anyone who wants to, save some time. You basically have to grab it the one time. There's a couple other things just as far as view goes. You'll be able to see those default credit card, or I should say just default payment methods on the overview page. So you can also have quick access to that. You guys will see that. And if you have questions on any of this, we'll have help documentation. We'll have a page dedicated to this on the brochure site. We'll have links. You guys will have a video you can watch if you want to learn more about it. All of that stuff's coming. So hope you guys are excited as we are to get that out. There's probably a couple more things we could talk about this. Do you want to talk about the blog post at all, Joe, or do you want to wait until that's out?
You mean the we don't talk about ServiceMonster pay.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to keep that title. I thought it was clever, especially if you're in, social media and popular culture. We don't talk about Bruno, but because that kind of does the sausage factory thing, right? Companies don't talk about why they hook up payment providers directly and then typically offer you no other options.
Yeah.
We do. We continue to offer you other payment options, but yes, that Asher will be publishing that probably next week. So just a little blog post that I did giving you a peek behind the sausage factory a little deeper than maybe even these conversations, a little more thoughtfully too than maybe sometimes I rattle off. But
yeah, so you guys should definitely take a look at that. It's a really deep insight, kind of where this whole process came from and why we wanted to go about it and why we still offer you guys choice, right? We could very easily shut everything else off in the marketplace and say, here's ServiceMonster, pay, take it or leave it. It's just not how we operate. So anyways, that's kind of the main thing. There are some other major updates coming right along kind of behind this, but we've already gone on quite a bit about that. So let's focus on that. We'll talk about the rest next month. Mobile. There is a mobile release that coincides with this. It's a 1.4.5. It also is going to add the ServiceMonster payment forms into the app for anyone who uses that. But there are also some features and bugs that are being fixed. There's multiple fixes that are going out for the toolbar settings. Some of you guys were having situations where the toolbar settings weren't saving or were resorting to default. So that's been fixed. Some of you guys were struggling with the GPS issues, especially if you were in kind of maybe not like bad signal, but not, 5 bars, where it would basically, you weren't able to clock in and clock out properly. And so that issue is resolved. There's an issue where sending a text within the ServiceMonster pipeline, so just the default, would crash the app sometimes. That's been resolved. A bunch of other less common crashes that were kind of scattered throughout the app. And like I said, the ServiceMonster pay kind of functionality. So the one thing on mobile I do want to take a moment to address is there was a post that came up a couple of weeks ago where a couple of users were really struggling with the mobile app for a couple of different reasons. And some of them we've talked with already. And they're intermittent issues. They're affecting certain users. And we have some plans kind of outlined on how we're going to work with them directly and after this 1.4.5 release is out. So we have some ideas we're going to use as far as some deeper analytics and find who might be interested in kind of working with us to help kind of debug, because we cannot, we haven't been able to reproduce any of the issues on our end, no matter what we try to do. And that's super frustrating for everyone involved, right? Because we don't want you guys to have that experience, but we can't find the needle in the haystack to resolve it. So we have, like I said, we have some ideas. Joe and I have talked about it. We're gonna get with Ethan on the mobile team post release, and we're gonna find a way to kind of move that forward and keep that communication tight with you guys to get those resolved. So
yeah, and let me jump in here real quick because obviously if we can reproduce it, we can fix it, and we've always been good about that. Occasionally, especially with mobile, there's just a sprinkling of these weird anomalies, these outliers. If you're interested in quantum physics, it's like tunneling, right? It's what makes the sun go. It's why it doesn't burn up all the hydrogen all at once. It's because it's so freaking rare. So we need your help. So if you're experiencing that problem, reach out to Adam, right? And I would wait until the next release and make sure that that's smooth. To make sure that some of these ones we do know about, like the texting one Adam is aware of. There are some people who, when they ship a text, it would crash the app. That was a more common one that we're able to find, replicate, identify, and move on. These really, really nuanced ones, we're going to end up requiring your help. Well, and with Ethan and myself, I'll get involved in the architecture again. And what we'll do is we'll basically start recording footprints as you're using the app. But I only want to turn that on if you're participating in our diagnostics, right? So if you're helping us run a diagnostic because you're having an issue, we're going to give you a button that does a lot of tracking and tracing so that we can figure out what the hell's going on. So to prep you for that. So a little give and take here. If you do have problems after the new app releases that you see occasionally and we're not able to reproduce it, happy to have those conversations and get you involved in helping us help you. Help us help you.
Yep. And we'll reach out through either SMUG or I'll have a pipeline set up through the support team so that you guys can get in touch with me. So, So that's kind of the news, a lot, right? We've been talking now for 35 minutes, if you can believe it. Fortunately, no one's hopped in the chat, which had someone to kind of chat with here, but we have a couple of SMUG posts we wanted to go over, which again, we'll get Mary involved for a couple of these. The first one was Matt a few weeks ago was asking about the max driving range. And he screenshotted the schedule settings page. He had never seen that before. So Mary, do you kind of want to just take over the driving seat really quick and just kind of showcase that and just the settings in general?
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully you can see my screen here again. So the maximum driving range, this actually connects with our appointment color coding system. So when you go into your schedule and click on settings here, that's where you can access this from. And I believe the default one is set at being 45 miles. So, excuse me. The way that this works is if you've entered in an address into your dispatch location here, which you can think of as the location that you or your team are heading out from. If you go into the colors tab, this takes that dispatch location and that maximum driving range and is how your appointment color coding is set up. So to be a bit more clear with that, you can think of this gray circle in the middle as being your dispatch location. And then all of your appointments in this case that are north of me are blue, east are green, south are yellow, and west are red. And then this is also broken down by distance. So appointments that are in the first third of my maximum driving range, or in this case, the first 15 miles, will be these pastel colors. The next third will be these brighter colors, and then the final third will be these darker colors. Anything outside of my maximum driving range is going to be color coded as a dark gray. So that's where that information is used, is really for the appointment color coding. Yeah.
There's also a cool thing you can do about that initial radius. You want to talk about that since we got it here up here, or I can talk about it if it's easier.
Oh, I can totally. So that you're thinking about the small radius zone around dispatch location?
Absolutely.
So what this means is if you have any appointments that are really close to you, they are going to be color coded as a light gray to kind of match what's in the center of the circle here. So you can actually see this right here on the schedule. These appointments I have right here that are gray, those are ones that are included in. So if you have this checked, those are going to be a light gray to signify, hey, this is super close to your business. I believe it's the first like 5% of your maximum driving range. So just really nearby to where you are. And so of course that's handy when you're going and scheduling appointments, being like, oh, okay, that's, super, super close by where I am. I can fit them in, at this time.
Right. It's basically something you can just hit up on the way. You can send that with anything, right? We used to do that back in the olden days. Joe always brings up pizza delivery, my college job. We would do that sometimes, right? You just take this on the way, hit it, boom, then you're onto the second one, right? So same idea. And it also, just while she's got that up, you can turn off the hover. We actually this was a really interesting. We got a ton of feedback one year where users hated the hover pop-up, and we just added a section. If you guys really don't want the hover, you can turn that off. You can set up the schedule interval here, business hours, and so forth. And there's some additional settings in here. Mary's talked about them before in other events, like the appointment details and the display settings. If you guys are ever curious, there's a help article that goes over kind of all of this. So it's really detailed. So
yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Mary. The next question was from Paul, and he wanted some feedback, help needed with contracts. And like, hey, I'm getting these contracts set up and was having an issue with a bug where the payment link wasn't working. Well, I thought this was a great one to mention for a couple of reasons. One, well, we've resolved the bug. The payment link will now work if you set that up. But the contracts, like if you were paying attention in the ServiceMonster Pay section, are getting beefed up. If you use ServiceMonster Pay, you can now auto charge with the contracts. There's basically two options. You can still continue to bill your client if you would prefer them, to give them maybe like a net 30 or some sort of time period where they're going to pay you, or you can just set it up to auto charge, right? So now you have both options. If you do the billing option, you will then have access to the payment link, and that will also work with Stripe and Authorize, the sort of the older method. So that will get resolved. So Paul, hope you're listening. Thanks for giving us that feedback. We got that resolved. So The last one came in from Eric, and this sort of led into a deeper discussion. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about. Talked about the technician security role and how far out of the schedule can they see. So if they log in on a Monday, how far into the future and how far into the past can they see work that's either been done or about to be done. And we added this to a help article to make this easier to understand, but I'll break it down for you guys like this. The way that it currently works, if you're a super technician, you can view the full schedule. They have access to essentially a miniaturized version of the manager app where they need to be able to see the full schedule so they can schedule people, create orders, create accounts, all this stuff. They're actively doing more within the app so they can see all of the routes and so forth. So there's no restriction in terms of time as far as that goes. Technician Plus can view their own schedule 3 weeks out and 2 weeks back. And we gave this because we had some feedback from users who wanted their techs to have a little bit longer time to plan vacations and things like that. So we gave that option. The technician and laborer roles can view their own schedule 2 weeks forward and 1 week back. And I want to clarify something on this. If it's something, that we need to look into and address, Joe and I are all about the iterative process and making improvements. But when this was first built, the way that this was designed was looking at work weeks or business weeks. So when I say 2 weeks forward, I don't mean exactly 14 days from the current day. What I mean is 2 weeks in terms of business weeks. So whether it's Monday or Friday, their tech will only ever be able to see that current week and the next week. When it flips to next Monday, it'll then expand to that next week, if that makes sense. It's just the way it was designed. So if you guys have any kind of comments or feedback on that, you want to let us know. Perfect. Take that into account. And what this also led into was some discussions that I had with a couple of different users and a couple of our corporate users as well, who wanted to restrict it even further in terms of what they're able to see. And we're going to add a new security role, which will basically just mimic the technician and laborer roles that currently exist, but they will have a change on the schedule. And so they will only be able to view the current day. So they won't be able to see anything in the past. Once you'll be able to see anything in the future, they'll just be able to see everything for that currently scheduled day. So that'll be out, not in this upcoming release, not in 6.6.4, but it will be out in the release following that. So thought you guys might be interested in kind of talking about that, learning about kind of how that is, and also maybe learning something, right? And Mary can link that help article if you guys are curious and want to know more. So, whew, man, out of breath. It's been a hot minute since I was doing this. It's man, so it was good chatting to people. I wish we had some people in chat here.
Yeah,
but,
you got a few looky-loos, but I think it's the new format. We didn't notify anybody, right?
Well, especially after missing last week. So. Right.
Yeah. So this isn't the normal planned event. So obviously, if you're rewatching this, then that's where you're going to get the value. And then keep in mind, Justin's going to be managing this from now on, and we will be sure to be here the first Friday of every month at 3:00 Pacific.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep the SMUG questions coming. Keep the interaction amongst yourselves going, because that's really where you get some big horsepower. And let us know how those integrations are working out for you. Till next time, have fun, make some money.
Take care, guys.
See ya.